Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Like I tell you all the time, I know dope people. And one, y'all noticed I'm outside because this is different for me. I'm trying to enjoy enjoy outside, enjoy the fresh air, the breeze against my skin and all that as we wind down summer. So if you all see me pull out my little sweat towel and tap my head a little bit, that's what's happening.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you muted yourself, accent.
No, it was somebody was trying to call in and it was like, dude, it's on do not disturb. I don't understand what's going on with you, bruh. Bruh. Oh shit. Okay, that's gonna be, I'm sorry. I just got a text message that it's a job I'm applying for. Got a text message that it's the project manager on the program just quit. So that's gonna be. Anyway, so let's get back to you, because I'm telling people that the dude is. So this is again one of the problems about live, because the little boy just pulled his drawers out his butt and in the background of my shot. Woo! I'm gonna do a better job scouting location. The team told me, they were like, "Hey, you know what? This is the first time out. You might not want to do it." I was like, "Oh no, it'll be fine. I can do it."
You got this. You got this.
I didn't know that was gonna get a draws picking in. Anyway, whatever. So I'm gonna finish this whole damn sentence because I know dope people, and one of the things I want to make sure that other people do is get to know the dope people I know. And today I get to bring on one of the dopest. Dr. Kimya, Jesus, this entire outside thing is not going well for me today.
It's don't blame the allergies on that mispronunciation. I can pronounce it.
Somebody, they were cutting grass out here. Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. Dr. Dennis and I have had the pleasure of association for about 3 years now, 3 or 4 years. And one of the things that I appreciate about Dr. Dennis is that Dr. Dennis will give it to you raw, straight, and unfiltered, uncut. And specifically in the area when we're talking about racial inequity and how power is played out. But what I want to do before we get too far in, I want to make sure that the people who don't know you, they get an opportunity to. So, Doc, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much. So yeah, you and I've known each other 3 years. I moved here in Baltimore a year before COVID. So we used to be like, let's meet here, let's meet there. Oh, and then COVID, we're like, okay, let's meet, but we're gonna stay outside with our masks on, and that just took the fun away, and then we stopped hanging out. So I'm Kimya Nuru Dennis.
That and my mental health challenges. I don't even pretend that it wasn't just about COVID. So I got caught out. I got caught up.
And that's okay. And we'll talk about mental health challenges because we need our people and our families to be honest about mental health challenges and physical health challenges and how that shapes and how it's even impacted by COVID as well. So we'll talk about that also. So yeah, I'm Kimya Nuru Dennis. I am a community advocate, sociologist, criminologist, educator, researcher. I used to be a full-time professor in North Carolina. I created an academic program, a criminal studies program in 2011. So I was the coordinator of that program from 2011 to 2019. And you can find all this on my website. So I'm CEO and founder of 365 Diversity. So on there, you'll find the biography, my resume. You'll find all sorts of things about my background. I talk about how I'm Pan-African and a descendant of centuries of enslaved Africans / Black people on this stolen land that forcefully became United States of America. And so you'll see all that on my website. People be like, why you gotta share all that? Why? Because William knows this about me. I don't believe professionalism in terms of European white man standard, where And I have to tell this to my friends all the time. There's so many boring people who are not really boring, but they're boring. Like, you see their photos, you know, I hate sites like LinkedIn that had banned me a few years ago, but they're boring when you see them everywhere. They're boring at meetings, their website's boring. They all have poses like, so people like me, my business is me. Like, it's literally, William knows this. Like, before I became LLC, I had for years been doing consulting work. In North Carolina, I was on the board of directors. I was doing all this community work. I was in the communities more than I was on campus as a professor and as staff for another university. And eventually, another Black man advised me. He was like, "You're doing all of this work." He said, "You actually are a Black sociologist and criminologist who knows centuries of Black racial justice work before this DEI, DNI, anti-racism, bias training stuff existed." So he's actually my motivational person who told me to get this started. And a lot of people have stolen from what I do. But I tell people, I'm not mad. I ain't mad at you now, like Pac said. Why not? Because when people don't know what they're doing, they ain't about to ruin. They can copy and paste, but they don't have the knowledge of centuries of Black works, indigenous, native to this land works, which is not the same as our people, because our people from Africa, but there's people who was here thousands of years before our people. But all of it connects because these are all works about racial justice that existed before New York Times bestseller books were written, before all of this existed. So I always tell people, I don't believe in bias trainings. I don't believe in implicit bias trainings. I don't believe in definitions trainings. When people hire me, I tell them, we're not going to spend an hour explaining racism to white people and debating definitions that they read on Webster, Merriam-Webster or something. Same thing, we're talking about sexism, homophobia, transphobia. I don't waste time on definitions because I specialize in policies, 6-month annual assessments. I specialize in curriculum and creating materials for K through 12 schools, colleges, universities. I do library material assessments. So I tell people, you can define it. It could be your birthday cake. That could be your definition for it. You know, you can believe in bias trainings all you want to, but what I focus on is what's going to be the outcome. It's not about comforting people. And there I go moving my laptop, like I told you about earlier. But I tell people, you can't just come to me wanting what everyone else is doing. Because everyone else is doing that because it's quick money. They adopt what I'm doing when they're like, okay, I'll do what Dr. Dennis is doing, when people are willing to pay that too. But then when they have to really explain it extensively beyond regurgitating a book or something, they're not quite familiar with that. So that's just my background, born and raised Richmond, VA, Second Capital Confederacy. Again, I lived in North Carolina for 17 years and now I'm in Baltimore City. And the work I do is local, national, global. So I connect with organizations everywhere that actually want real work. It's literally real work with demographic and cultural. So like as Pan-African, there's no one size fit all with Africans, with Black people. We have to understand our identities, which include minoritized identities within our people. We have to be honest about whose voices within our people are also the loudest. So that's just long story short of what that's cool.
One of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times that I want to make sure that we give people some clarity on, because there's been a lot of stigma and misunderstanding about this concept of being Pan-African. And that runs the gamut from, oh, that means you just want to go back to Africa, to, oh, you believe that Black people are superior to white people. There's all of these mishmash things. And so from my vantage point, one of the challenges has been the fact that language gets absconded and run away with. And my belief is that once you take over a language, you control thought, because that's how thought is manifest, is through language or even communicate. So what does being Pan-African actually mean?
Okay, so first I will say that Pan-Africanism has been over 150 years, and that's parts of the world. Now, explaining Pan-Africanism depends on whom is asking me to explain. I don't explain Pan-Africanism to non-Africans, because there's like a century of publications. There's entire books, there's stuff on websites. So to our people, when I explain Pan-Africanism, I explain that when you look at the history, Marcus Garvey is not the founder of Pan-Africanism, but considered one of the trailblazers. Marcus Garvey did not believe that we all had to go back to Africa. Marcus Garvey, when he bought the ships, that was this option of going back to Africa. And I mean, there's so much that goes into this that I explain, but he had met with Ku Klux Klan members, which is why a lot of Black people in the United States of America in particular lost some trust for Marcus Garvey. But his organization that he founded, UNIA, chapters in America, chapters in Jamaica, and there's a chapter in Baltimore that's a relatively new chapter. And so the whole go back to Africa thing, that's depends on what people want it to mean. I mean, for example, I see Black people worshiping Abraham Lincoln, such that they're even pretending Abraham Lincoln was Black. He was a white man. If you read his letter that he wrote regarding the Union, he said that he's not opposed to abolishing slavery. He's not either side. He's really apathetic. His focus only is on the Union. Yeah, he wrote that in a letter. He was not.
He looked at it as, my job as president, and this slavery thing is in the way. I can't keep the Union together with slavery. Oh well, I guess we have to fight it. And actually, if I remember correctly, he said if he could have preserved the Union, I might be misquoting him, but
and kept us as slaves, yes,
and kept the slavery, he would have done that.
Yes, that's why in that letter he specifically said it's for the Union. He's not a supporter of slavery. He's not anti-slavery. He's about the Union. And slavery abolition, the Emancipation Proclamation only happened because white people had found other profit base.
Yeah, and I think that you and I have had this conversation a few times offline, but one of the largest tricks that white supremacists use is, again, this whole thing around language. And to your earlier point, it is not just absconding with language and taking over definitions and things like that. It is about how they repackage the language and give it to each other, and the communities that they're in, they adopt it wholesale. Like it amazes me the savagery of the tactics that have been used over the course of centuries to eliminate dissension. And one of the things that I realize is that a lot of it has to do with money and power. And now they hit the lottery when they realized that they could discriminate or they could oppress Black folks. They won the oppression lottery, or the oppressors lottery, because they were disconnected from our homes, and whole other land, blah blah blah. But white people have been doing this for thousands of years, whether before it was over religion or over borders of land, or hell, even within the same country, fighting amongst the different counties fighting each other. Like it was real, let me get power and let me abuse and exploit anybody along the way.
And that's around the world. I mean, wars around the world, and that's before racial categories existed. So white people created racial categories about 5 centuries ago for the purpose of lumping thousands of years of humans around the world into these categories. And of course, the original categories are more like the Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid, and then, it expanded. And that's what white people did. But I also want to highlight that white people have centuries of also relaxing. Why? Because white people know that the colonialism, the white terrorism, the Christian missionaries. And of course, Africa was colonized by Muslims before European white colonialism rather. But white people understand that there's Black folks, there's Asians, there's indigenous, Aboriginal, you know, the list goes on of people who are doing now the job of white people. And so, I mentioned Abraham Lincoln when talking about what is Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism is about the pro-Africa mixed with pro-Black in that sense. Not all Pan-African in that sense. Some are only pro-Africa. But it's not the same thing as like African nationalism. Pan-Africanism is based on uniting our people on the continent of Africa and uniting our people around the world. And there's different versions of it. There's different interpretations of it, which is why when I am part of Pan-African groups, I always have to pick and choose, because a lot of our groups, you know, have a very narrow focus that loses a lot of the message there. But Pan-Africanism is also very much based in knowledge. So knowledge means understanding that as Africans, as Black people regarding race, we can disagree, we can debate. Pan-Africans have argued, like literally argued with each other for more than 150 years. And we have to, though, accurately depict history. So when I hear Black people say Abraham Lincoln saved us and released us, I mean, he literally said, y'all can go back to Africa for all I care. It wasn't because he was pro-Africa. It was literally because it was like, get out the way because we done got new products. It's like when you go to the grocery store and they giving away the groceries and the sale item because they've got new stuff in it.
The Black people ended up being on the clearance rack.
It's the clearance rack, yeah. So that's the rundown of Pan-Africanism. There's tons of readings, there's tons of writings. Pan-Africanism is based on thousands of years of African knowledges. And I always have to highlight that because we have thousands of years of African sciences, African mathematics, African forms of medicine and health. All these things that most people think were created by European white people and possibly created by Asians, but they tend to ignore the creation by Africans, by Aboriginal people, by indigenous people in Western Hemisphere. And so these are all just things that I highlight when talking about Pan-Africanism. It's not this notion that we all have to go back to Africa. I mean, it's fine to visit Africa, but Marcus Garvey himself and most Pan-Africans who are outside of Africa, especially due to slavery, have not visited Africa and never moved to Africa. And nor do you have to, especially when people have familial obligations in other parts of the world.
So, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to really kind of get into that, because one of the things we've talked about often is that as we've tried to have conversations with, particularly with Black folks around empowerment and around looking, kind of cutting through what you see around you and to see what actually happens, I get caught a lot of times on these definitions that, oh, well, that's not what it was like. But wait a minute, where did you get the definition from? Like you are telling me, I love this one. An example of not dealing with Pan-Africanism, but in my life, I had a gentleman came to me for business advice and then wanted to explain to me how an industry that he's never worked in worked, that I have extensive experience in. And it's like, I think you should go back and Google me, because one of us on this conversation is a business expert and the other is not. So I think we should probably listen to the business expert on this one.
And I think shade. That was shade.
But if you call me, don't question me. You know what I mean? Not in absolute values. Again, want to make sure that you understand, but don't. But I find it insulting when I am telling you what I've seen and what I know, and you are telling me, oh no, it won't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Or conversely, I have people that tell me oh, I'm going to be able to do this with my business and that with my business. Is like, where have you seen this happen? Well, nowhere, but I'm an innovator. It's like, okay, cool. You may be able to do it, but recognize that now you have to take the lead, because I can't do it because you clearly know more than I do. And I'm okay with that. I'm ready to learn, But what ends up happening is that my clients tend to fall into the, oh, well, it didn't work. Well, no, I knew it wouldn't work. And I think the same thing kind of happens in these D&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, and those types of spaces. You have well-meaning people, and again, not knocking anybody's intention, because I assume you have good intentions until you don't, because otherwise it's a story in my head. So even well-meaning intention, because they're not focused on policy or on outcomes, but more on process, they're able to support white supremacy in fact without having to support it in concept. So talk a little bit more about the policy work that you do to help prevent those types of things from happening.
So the attempt is to try to reduce the likelihood, but this is where collaborations have to be beyond surface level. It has to be beyond theory. And so, and I explain this to Black people everywhere. I explain this to whether people are Pan-African, pro-Black, pro-Africa, Black nationalists, African nationalists, no matter people's identity that they say they have. I tell people, a lot of y'all are tokens. And not in, you don't do
a lot of them are what?
Tokens.
Oh, yeah.
You yell tokens. I want the record to show William Honeyblue had me yell token. Okay, I want the record to show that.
That I said what?
That you made me yell token.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Talking.
So, you know, and I tell people that's not Du Bois's double consciousness. That's not what Dr. Anna Julia Cooper wrote about Black women having to have those dual identities. I hear a lot of Black folks over the past few years talking about code switching and code language, which is very annoying because that's very white accepted terminology. It's a very white accepted way to complain, which I tell people.
Wait, code switching is a complaint?
So when people say they're code switching, they're saying that they have to switch who they are and they have to, and I tell people, it's like, first of all, that's a version of explaining this problem that's a white people version of explaining the problem. It's not what Black folks have explained for centuries in terms of how we've had to try to coexist and just, you want to say?
No, that's what I was saying. I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying about code switching.
Yeah.
And it really, and I think this is a really great opportunity because I think it's illustrative of kind of the conditioning, because as you, I took code switching as a skill or a talent because I guess for me, I don't just use it around white folks. I use it around because I have a colorful language. So sometimes when my mama friends come over, I gotta code switch it up, especially in front of them because she needs to be custom.
Right. So a lot of, exactly. So when a lot of people talk about code switching, they use it similar to where they use imposter syndrome.
The way they use what?
Imposter syndrome is also a very common phrase. And so when they say code switching, a lot of times they're not just talking about code switching how they are when they're around their friends as compared to when they get home. Now they got to put on a different hat. A lot of people are talking about code switching around people, particularly of power majority cultures. And that's also a similar dynamic as the imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So when I hear people talk about this, I ask them, what is your point of highlighting these phrases and using this terminology, but you're going to do the same thing tomorrow?
Yes.
Because like literally, I have spent years as a student, as faculty, as staff on committees, part of health board of directors, part of health cohorts, in trainings where I actually call out stuff. Why do I call out stuff? And of course I get labeled angry Black woman, unprofessional Black woman. Why do I call out stuff? Because equity and justice is not theoretical. Like, I'm not gonna sit like the token who's peaceful and cool, and then the next day I'm gonna do an interview to talk about imposter syndrome. I always tell people, like, what is your real purpose? What is your real goal? Like, what are you really doing this for? Like, pretend it's a therapy session, but the therapy session is based on justice. Are you talking about imposter syndrome just to get it off your back in terms of venting? Are you trying to change some things? Are you posting about problems on social media because it's your vent session? And then the next day you're gonna still be the token? And you're gonna switch your voice to make sure white people are comfortable? You're gonna switch your demeanor to make sure men are comfortable with you? So this is why I always hold people accountable. We can't keep blaming the oppressor. The oppressor is literally doing the same thing over and over again. Why? Because y'all are complying. And those of us who are not, you say that we're missing the larger purpose. We're unprofessional. Well, I mean, what's the deal breaker? Is there ever going to be a deal breaker then?
Well, greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege of being the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. The Black USA News Morning Show is currently recruiting guests for an upcoming series on single parents and co-parenting. We find that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of isolation in the narrative about single parents. And we want to make sure that we keep this platform available to tell the true story, our people's story. The topics that we will be covering range from health, wellness, type of support, how important your social support system is, romance, and things of that nature. If you're interested in becoming a guest, you can check the link in the description. You can email us at info@grindinggang.com, or you can visit this link. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.
I have conversations with Black people every single day, but Black people do not need a definition of racism. Instead, what Black people need is a conversation about identities and experiences. I don't say this is how we define racism. I say, what are your experiences in terms of racial identity, and how does racial identity not be synonymous with used power for centuries? So So again, I do not walk into Black spaces based on Black people needing intro lessons. Why? Because I challenge Black people. I challenge Black people in communities and in schools to actually self-reflect. What are my own experiences? What are my own identities? What do I already know? Then what can I bring to the table for discussion? Because white people for centuries want Black people to consider themselves ignorant, stupid, in need of an intro understanding of anything. And that's exactly the brainwashing. And if you all want to own ignorance, I can't take that from you. But myself, I actually empower Black people by saying you're not ignorant. You might have been taught some falsehoods, but that's not ignorance, because that's centuries of falsehoods. Instead, you now need to self-reflect on why the falsehoods happen. But if those of you want to consider yourself ignorant, I'm not going to take that hat off of your head.
Cool. So let's talk about some once people go through this process, this awakening and this educational process that you put them through, what are the outcomes on the other side?
Depends on who the people are that you're talking about. That varies by demographics. If it's Black people, it's a sense of understanding what are the ways that we can demand and even require changes to school curriculum and school materials. Like when I was a child, having two Black parents who were educators, my brothers and I were told to challenge the teachers at our Black schools. Challenge teachers, yes, you'll get in trouble. But the whole idea is if you're compliant, then you're compliant no matter how much you complain later on. So those are just examples of challenging. As for non-Black people, the change is on your side. I don't believe in a such thing as white allies, stuff like that. Instead, I tell people, what are you actually doing? Like, I'm not here to be your friend, so you can't say I just want a Black friend or a non-Black friend. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing as a decision maker? What are you doing as a teacher? I tell people I don't believe in a such thing as good teachers if the teachers are just going with what they're told to do. I don't believe in such thing as good teachers if teachers are teaching falsehoods and they're like, well, this is just the book we were given. What? You're teaching stuff from a book and you know the book is given a false version of history and still showing Christopher Columbus as the white savior and showing transatlantic slavery in a certain way, such that people don't know that most Africans who were enslaved were not sent to the stolen land that became the United States of America. So these are just different forms of direction that I give people. Now, for places that hire me to actually change their policies, we're actually changing the policies that are written, and then we're doing 6-month to annual follow-ups. But I tell, but again, like I tell people, I'm explaining that if people want to convince themselves that they just don't know, then they're going to walk out the door not knowing.
Absolutely.
So that's why I say Black people are not ignorant. I want everyone to understand that we all come from a certain background where we did not know something. I'm cisgender heterosexual. So the work that I do is pro-LGBTQIA, and especially African LGBTQIA, I come to it with that cis hetero power. Therefore, it's my responsibility every day of my life to dismantle cis hetero power and protect LGBTQIA people from policies, from actions, and anything that can harm, murder, and just remove people.
I think I appreciate that part. That I think is kind of one of the things I have appreciated about your approach. It is based on substantive and it is outcome based. And I think that becomes very helpful because, while hearts and minds might be important esoterically, whether you meant to step on my foot because you thought there was a spider on it or because you wanted to hurt me, it doesn't stop the fact that my foot is still hurting. And so we need to address with the fact of, let's keep people from stepping on other people's foot. Let's find other ways that we figure it out. Stepping on foot wasn't a really great example, but I'm outside and sweating. So,
it's a good example. I mean, and also just like I tell people, if you insist on keeping on doing what you're doing, you can't be shocked by the lack of employee retention issues. You can't be shocked that there's eventually a physical altercation on the job, or somebody gets cussed out, or whatever happens. You can't, a lot of people chose, and this goes back to the whole thing about ignorance. A lot of people chose ignorance of all of these problems until COVID. Then they were like, I hate my job, or let's quiet quit. In academia, people are like, I'm leaving academia. And I'm like, what about Black folks who complain about academia for generations? What about those of us who left academia before COVID happened? And you all did not care. Why? Because we're not famous. We're not New York Times bestseller. We're not, people who you consider worth your support or whatever a case may be. So I tell people, if you also have selective vision and selective concern based on what's a popular thing, especially on social media, then that also shapes how people handle stuff at work. A lot of people, since technology and social media control so much, they're like, well, if we can hide this problem, we can hide it. We can think of the George Floyd protests and places that were interviewing me in 2000, places that were hiring me. I just explained to them, I said, you want an official statement? I'm not a fan of official statements because I know what they mean. They mean shut up, Black people. I mean, that's what they
talk about stuff, but I'm happy when I get to talk about stuff like Breakcoin. Breakcoin is an organization that takes your donations and puts the value toward the breadcoin that they mint. They mint these coins themselves. They have total control over its inventory. Those coins are distributed among an existing network of individuals who already work with the community, who already know who the people are who are in need of help and services and assistance. And what they do is they give these people the coins, and they can go to the participating restaurants and caterers, and they can get their food, and nobody knows why. A lot of times we require people to look homeless enough or to seem like they are in need before we feel the need to help them. That is not the way that it should be. And I am really grateful that we get to partner with an organization that allows people, and she not just allows them, but really wants them to maintain their dignity as they are navigating through spaces.
They've always meant.
Mhm.
That's what they always mean, whether it's done by the White House, whether it's done by this company, this school, that's what it always means, right?
Yep.
And what they're accustomed to is Black people being so clueless, so unconscious, so brainwashed, so happy to be here. I'm glad I got a job, or I need to get through school, so I'm not gonna say nothing. That's what they're accustomed to. So those of us who actually complain, they think that if they punish us, other Black people will abandon us because you don't want to allow
And it
her
works.
to get punished too. That's
That
the
works.
same, literally the same process for centuries.
But that works though. The reason that they do these things is that these things work. That's one of the
Yes.
reasons that they maintain control over means not only of production, but means of communication and things like that. Because when you can control the means of communication, you can control the means of thought. And you create these pockets where people where truth can't penetrate. And so people end up in these envelopes, and it becomes incumbent upon some of us to get them out of the envelopes as they are in their chrysalis, or as they're in their oh shit, it looks like it's about to rain up in this joint. Oh, see this?
That's what you get.
They were right. They were right. I should have really thought
That's
this
what
out
you
before I
get.
came outside. Oh yeah, no, you're right. Oh wow,
Well,
it's like the clouds are actually moving. This is actually pretty though. Like it's not
that's
raining
what
yet.
you
But
deserve. But
yeah.
I always tell people envelopes are often transparent. You can see through a lot of these things. Like Black sociologists have said for more than a century, a lot of people know. We just ignore a lot of things because that's the convenience that we need. We need to justify the decision we're making, and to convince ourselves it's okay, we just ignore a lot of stuff. And we also ignore stuff because we can't handle everything all at once. So that's just where
that's huge.
Right. So this is why I tell all people, you can't handle everything all at once, but you got to also be honest with yourself that you don't want to do a lot of justice work. I mean, we can't handle every topic, but with Black people specifically, I say, you can't handle every topic as well, but don't pretend you're not handling it because you have no idea. And this goes back to the ignorance thing. I need people to just be honest. You know about something, it's just not your interest. It's not your topic of interest. You think it's somebody else's thing, that's fine. But this is where honesty is also crucial for justice. Because whether it's individuals, politicians, everyone's accustomed to lying. That's for self-reflection, self-validation, to convince themselves, and also to convince other people not to fuss. And that's just the routine. And that's part of the ongoing struggles for the remainder of human existence. All of these inequities, all of these injustices, all of these problems will exist as humans exist. So I tell Black people, the work we're doing with racial justice, we do our part for our generation. We leave the template and foundation and resources for every generation of Black people after us around the world until humans no longer exist. Never think that you're changing something and the change is not going to be reversed when you go to sleep. Never think you're changing something and the generations after you are not going to have to worry about that again. That's literally why I want Black people to be aware. You don't have to be the expert on stuff because that's not how real life operates, but you have to just notice it. You can disagree with it, and that happens with Black people, different political parties. You can disagree with something, but you still noticed it. You're like, I disagree, but I see, I just disagree.
I know, I understood what you were saying. I just don't agree with your perspective. I think is limited. That's all.
But I think that's not limited. Calling yourself ignorant is limited.
I was giving you my opinion, and I own that. I think it's limited, and that's okay. Like, and for me, you're on part of the continuum that I was talking about before, and you are designed for people who are more advanced. No,
it's not advanced. No, I was talking about Black.
I apologize. I was just telling you what I think. I just was telling you about what I think.
Children. I have done work with Black children. I have done work with old Black folks. I connect with Black elders. It's not limited. It does not require advancement. I consider the existence of Black people to be based in awareness.
Do you understand what I was talking about when I said continuum?
I do.
So what was I talking about
when I
said when I was talking about the continuum? What was I talking about? Because I don't understand your response if you did.
Well, continuum is a range.
Yeah, but what continuum was I talking about?
Well, you said advanced, which means I'm all the way only reaching people over here.
What continuum?
That's not
though?
true.
Advanced on what continuum?
Regarding Black people's consciousness,
As they range through their consciousness, yes. Because I said the way I see it, because you wouldn't be good for me earlier, the earlier version of me. And so that's
me coming to you, inspiring and saying you actually know more than you're giving yourself credit for knowing, and trying to help you on those steps, just like I do with students.
That does not take into consideration my experience, and it would have been rebuffed. But again, cool.
Come on now.
Again, whatever you believe is cool. Because How dare you tell me that what I'm telling you my experience is my experience? Like, that shit is kind of annoying. I keep telling you this happened to me.
I appreciate you being I appreciate that, because that means you're thinking about it. So I work with people.
I have thought about it consistently, and I rejected it outright.
Yes, I hope you have a nightmare about it. I work with folks who can't even read. And the whole idea is
when I say advanced, you know, I'm not talking about academically. I'm talking about
guess what? Reading is not academically either. You know that reading is thousands of years of various languages around the world. It has nothing to do with academia, right? So anyway, back to my point is I collaborate with people who can't even read. The whole idea is to understand
reading and education have nothing to do with the continuum I was talking about. So I guess.
Well, actually, education has to do with everything you're talking about, because you were not educated on facts.
When I said continuum, I wasn't talking about education. But again, clearly,
education has to do with everything we do. Education, informal education, and formal education has to do with everything we do.
Clearly, what I'm trying to articulate, not a big issue, but that's okay.
I mean, you're running in circles. Literally,
yeah, because you won't stop. You keep cutting me off every time I get started and bringing up a different point. It's a really great rhetorical.
You're not bringing up a different point.
Like this, like right now. It's amazing. It's a great rhetorical device. I see it on Fox News regularly.
Oh, that's your comparison to Fox News? That's another problem, but whatever.
Okay. The rhetorical devices, I'm saying this is where I've seen those rhetorical devices used.
But you watch Fox News. I mean,
in clips, not often.
Nah, whatever. You can't take that back. You already said it.
Oh,
so anyway,
again, I love it that you're able to tell me what I do and what I don't do. You are so
You're the one that used Fox News as a comparison.
I used an example, and then I told you I saw it on clips, and you're like, no, you don't.
Alarming. Alarming.
Cool.
Look, I want people to understand the meaning of education. Education means a conversation on the corner of Bel Air and Edison. That's education. It does not have to be a classroom. Most education is not in the classroom. So I just want you. Say it again.
I never said it was.
Actually, when you said it has nothing to do with education, that's what you're conveying.
Wow, thank you for telling me what I was saying again. I should talk to you.
I said conveying. Conveying means that was expressed. It might not have been what you were thinking, but that's what you expressed.
But that's why I said I should contact you regularly to find out what I actually mean in life.
That might be a good thing.
It might be. I would end up in a vastly different position though, but it's cool. Oh shit, I didn't realize how much time had gone.
Maybe I will erase your need to want to consider yourself formally ignorant. I mean, based on that logic, humans are constantly ignorant. Shit, I mean, we have thousands of years of the world. We're only going to learn like 1% of thousands of years of the world. So if that's this constant ignorance that people want to hold on to, fine. But I don't see that as something that is building awareness, building knowledge, and building actions to actually make real life changes. If people want to be ignorant from their background to current, and they really want to hold on to it to the point that they defend it, like, oh, damn it, I was ignorant. No, I was ignorant. You not gonna tell me I was ignorant. Okay, you was ignorant. I mean, now what? So it's like, I always ask Black folk, like, you know, what's the debate really?
Cool in the game. Well, I'm starting to sweat a lot and trying to get away from the rain, and I didn't realize how much time had already passed. Oh, my party people, my friends out there in internet land, it has been a wonderful opportunity to talk to you all. Dr. Dennis, let me give you the full screen. Tell them where they can get in contact with you so they can follow up with you, and procure your services.
Okay, you can find me 365 Diversity. I need people to understand the meaning of education. I also need people to not want to assume that they don't know, whether it's from your childhood to adulthood. And this is just something that you have to be conscious, even in the basic smidget of your inner self, or else there's nothing that's going to want you to develop. And so Black people have explained this for centuries. If we want to be stuck in the rut of saying we don't know, Black folks have literally repeated that for centuries. We don't know, we don't know, we don't know, we don't have options, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know, we don't have options. If you want to be stuck in that, that's on you. But if you actually want some real changes without being offended that the response is not exactly as you want, then holler at me. But if you want it to go exactly as you want, then there's plenty of people who don't know what they're doing, but they will do something on the surface for you to make you smile. And they'll hug you and you'll go back to not doing anything, okay? You're on mute again.
I was saying that I suggest you all holler at Dr. Dennis, because a lot of times, a lot of your companies will get caught with that whole performative statements and stuff like that. You really want to make substantive change. If you really want to make sure that your people get challenged and that you're able to take it up a different to a whole new level, and really look at life differently, have different outcomes for the people that you serve. Yeah, holler at Dr. Dennis. She and I have conversations all the time. And most of them sound like this. But that's one of the reasons that I appreciate the work that she does, is because she won't back down. I mean, I don't agree with some of the stuff that she said today, but that's my own issue. We'll cover that later.
You just want to say that at the end. You just want to say that at the end.
No. We'll cover that later, because that's. And the funny part is that they know me well enough to know that shit's going to get covered in the end. That's what I do. I cover shit in the end.
You be like, I don't agree with you, click.
Oh, no. They also know I don't do that. But yeah, making sure that if you are looking to really do diversity work, if you're looking to really have an impactful change on the communities that you serve, you need to make sure that you bring people who really understand and really care about transformative change. That's Dr. Dennis. Shit, we about to get, you know what? We're going to have to call this a wrap, because this is going to be over an hour and I'm going to get in trouble with something. All right, we will be Black later. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yes, she is phenomenal. And now we have William.
Hey.
And he's going to give us some information about Grinding Gang, which is very impactful, especially if you're trying to learn about being part of a business, or you like some consultation. So give us the information.
Oh, well, first, thank you, Quandra, for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. So that's first and foremost, it's important.
You're welcome. Thank you. So tell us about Grinding Gang.
So the Grinding Gang is my company, and it's named after what I was seeing as a business consultant. People out there who are just in the trenches, who are grinding, really putting the work in and hustling it and bringing in the cash, where they say we're securing the bag. But what I realized is that there was a problem that the Grinding Gang had, is that the grind only got you so far. It's like being on the hustle keeps you on the hustle. You don't have an opportunity to build and to get beyond the grind. So what I figured I'd do is pull the Grinding Gang together and say, hey, together, because we all have the components that are necessary so that we can take it to the next level. So why don't we come together and figure out what happens beyond the grind? And so that was kind of the philosophical nexus for the Grinding Gang. What it ends up being in practical terms is that it's an organization, more like a community, that brings people together who have subject matter expertise. And one of the things we anchor in is the concept of practical genius. Practical genius is this concept that each of us has something that we know. Sometimes is that we know the people that we are around better than anybody else. So that means we have insight in a particular market, in a particular type of person that we can leverage in developing our business. Some of us have other natural skills, like some of us are good conversationalists and may be able to, talk through or entertain people that way. There may be some of us who are great writers or other types of things, and the grinding gang helps leverage all of your resources or all of your engagement so that you can take your business to the next level and really truly be impactful. I'm gonna let you ask me questions because I can talk about this all the time. I enjoy this part.
Okay, so tell me more. How can a person become involved?
So the grinding gang, we have a couple of different ways to become involved. So on the one hand, the customers that we service are individuals who are in either for-profit or nonprofit businesses. We specialize in organizations that are small businesses and micro enterprises. And now, if you look at small business, if you looked at the United States Code to find the definition of small business, you would find more than 26 definitions. I want to be clear about what a small business is when we're talking about it. When we're talking about a small business, we specialize in businesses that have less than about 750 or $1 million of revenue a year, and less than 25 employees. We have an expertise in businesses with less than 500,000 in revenue and less than 7 employees. Because what we found is that the conversations that you have with businesses at different levels needs to be different. By and large, oh, hey,
Mama I'm going to invite Mama Deborah back so that she can learn more about grinding gang, because
I was paying attention.
The more the merrier. So what we do is that we work with these organizations to really rethink how they do business. Like when we're doing a business plan, we deal with our philosophy is that, well, a business plan is good, but a business system is better, because your business plan should be reflective of what you are actually going to do in business. That document that most people look at as the business plan, that's just a sales document. That's a document so that you can share what you're going to do in your business with other people in a method and a manner and a template that they can understand. That what I have found is that when people have those many times when people have those great documents, they never look back at them. I've done more than one strategic plan or business plan for an organization. And then I do, annual check-ins like, well, how have you been? Oh, wow. Right. We haven't done that. And it's like, no, come on. And not just on, my selfish, vanity that, you've wasted my time and I created this masterpiece for you that you should be using. But it is more than where is your organization? Because in the strategic plan or in the business plan, we laid out what the map was. It's kind of like me saying like, hey, I printed you out directions to drive to Cairo, Georgia. And and I call you, 10 hours into your trip and like, well, where are you along the directions? Oh, I don't know. I just jumped on like going south. I know it's south, so I just kept going south. Directions, I didn't even look at it. I left them in. No, ma'am, because you make a wrong turn in Cairo, you might not come back.
True.
And so those are the kind of things that we work with. And the other part is that I'm very upfront, is I think the majority of way that we teach business to individuals, especially nonprofit businesses, bull. It has virtually no bearing to real life. We teach them about these art, and the example I use is that an instructor, a business faculty, and when I was working on my MBA, it was like, this is the way where they give you this case study, and this case study like it's their ideas about what could happen in business. Then they give it to you and they want you to come up with a solution based on the limited information that they've given you. And then they want you to give them back a make-believe scenario to address a make-believe scenario. And if you haven't make-believed in the same way they make-believe, then you get an F.
Yes, indeed. I remember.
and Mama Deborah, and you as well, Quandra, can attest to the real world does not work like that. There's no way where, like, how many times have you all written down a to-do list, and by to the end of the day, it's to don't. And so getting them to understand this way of thinking, because what we realize is that there are a lot of people who they don't have the experience, mentorship, or what have you about business. So what they're doing is that they're just guessing. It's like, oh, I saw somebody do this, so I'm gonna do that too. Or I read an article by this famous person, and I'm gonna do what they did. I had one young man come to me, and he was saying all he needed to do was to get into a room with some famous people, and he'd be able to get them to buy his buy his service. And I was like, where are you getting this from? He's like, and so this is, and so let me tell you a little bit also about working with me. Sometimes I just say what I think. My filter is so incredibly broke. I've reached an age and enough grades that I don't care. So, you know, exactly what I think. But guess what? If you want to know what I think, I'm going to have to tell you, but I'm not going to make it up for you. Right. And so this young man told me, he said, well, I listen to, I read and I listen to stuff like by successful people like Rick Ross. Now, don't not for anything. Rick Rose, he is making money and he is doing a lot of stuff. But the way he boils it down simplistically takes out a lot of the nuances that actually got him there. It wasn't just that he was in the room that made the difference from him getting the contract. It was all of the other things that he did to get in the room. That made the difference. And so trying to head off some of the things like that and getting people to tap into their their practical genius and say, hey, wait a minute. Let's say getting in front of Rick Ross or getting in front of Kodak Black or whoever it is going to take you to the next level. So walk me through what you're going to do. And then what you start to realize is when people start to realize that their plans don't actually make sense. Their things miss is like, okay, so you're going to show up and say, hey, I'm here. I made it into the room. So how can we do business? I was like, do you have any contracts ready? Who's going to vouch for you? And it's one of those things and I am very upfront, and Quandra will tell you that working with me is disorienting. Things don't make sense. It makes me very frustrated, and I just need to make it to make sense. And what happens is that things like that, those aren't those types of things because I understand where they come from. Oh, you okay, Mama Deborah? Did I go out? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay, Mama Deborah, can you hear him? Can you hear? Can you hear Will?
Went out. How about now?
She was muted. She can hear you, but she was muted.
You can hear her, but she should be able to hear us. Okay, I think she said we're good now. Okay. So getting people to tap into their practical genius about how they navigate spaces, that becomes important because the decisions are yours. As a business consultant, if you make $1 million, that's wonderful for you. If you lose $1 million, that sucks for you. I got to get new clients. And so if I don't have the responsibility of living with the decisions, it is still your decisions to make. And my job is to help you with that.
Okay. So, Will, I will have you on a show and we can go into greater detail about Grinding Gang and the different ways that they can become a part of it as a individual who's starting a business, as someone who has already started a business plan, but you want to review it to make sure it makes sense and is practical and applicable.
You mind if I put something up on the screen so
sure
they can see?
Sure can.
Cool. I want to show them this.
Oh, okay.
This
taking
is
your business to the next level.
Yep, taking your business to the next level. We have free membership. You can just visit us at www.grindinggang.com. And we have free monthly events. We have documents that you can download and utilize. I mean, there's a lot of free information there because, and I'm gonna be honest about it. We do a lot of free information because we want you to take the first steps easy at no cost. Because when you're ready to really spend some money, we want you to think of us. We don't want to bleed your pockets before you get an opportunity to make some real money. I think Mama Deborah's having some technical difficulties with her sound system.
I can't hear.
You can't hear?
No, she can't hear. You want to pull her out?
Okay, hold on. And bring her back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Right there.
There you go.
Can you hear?
Can you hear? Can you hear?
No, she can't.
Yeah, I don't hear nothing.
Okay. All right. You should probably just pull her out there. All right.
All right. So, wow, we went over by 7 minutes, but it's worth 7 minutes.
I appreciate you having me on. I apologize that I talk a lot. So
that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. The most important thing is information, getting everything, because school is going to restart. It's going to start in another 2 weeks, and kids will be going. And then some schools start after Labor Day, but just getting information out here about how important and how imperative community plays a huge role in the development and the rearing of children, but it also plays a role in the development and rearing of being a parent, because we don't know it all, and it begins to develop you as a person, but also it allows you to expand your village. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people in my village that I did not have coming into adulthood, and really understanding what that means. So for that, I'm grateful to have Dr. Mama Deborah in my village, but also to have Will in my village, because because there are times when I am pulling my hair out, where there are certain things that just understanding the dynamics of corporate America, of business, of community, and even as an individual now in my 50s, into my 50s, and understanding what I will stand for and what I won't stand for. So absolutely. On that note, it has been a pleasure having Dr. Mama Deborah, who I hope to invite back again, and to you, Will.
No problem.
For that, I'll say thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening, and stay Black. Bye.
Bye.